I wanted to start with the position paper. Why don't we start, though, with Evergrande? I hope you don't mind. I mean, we mentioned it bringing you in, 1,700 members. Surely there is some exposure here, directly or indirectly. Is there concern from your members on this?
Well, certainly there's a concern. I mean, real estate makes up for 20% of GDP in China or even more. So there's going to be a ripple-on effect in case, Evergrande goes belly up and it actually has a contagious effect on other real estate developer. After all, we have overcapacity in apartments to the magnitude of 90 million apartments being idle. So yes, but at the same time, I guess it's not going to be layman. The specifics of China are very clear. They own everything. They own the land. They own the companies, the banks. They control the news. So I don't see this kind of loss of trust that actually brought Lehman and the whole system down in the US and globally. So I think that China has decided to go for de-risking and paying for it with a lower GDP trajectory growth.
And part of this regulatory crackdown, not just in the property sector, but there's also this aim for self-sufficiency, which is part of your position paper. Why focus on this topic now? Why do you think this could actually, in the end, I guess, damage the business environment for your members?
Well, we looked at the development of China over the last 30, 40 years since opening up and compared it with Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. You can see that actually China was not an outlier. They grew along the same lines, GDP per capita in PPP like the other economies. The difference, of course, being it's 1.4 billion times. And we can see that actually China is falling behind a little bit. And the scenarios we have is, so how much is China willing to forfeit economic growth for the sake of being self-reliant or even self-sufficient? And that's where we get worried. We would like China actually to grow stronger and not punch below its weight. And again, this self-reliance means onshoring, duplication of processes. We can see that innovation decelerates because of the lack of exchange of human resources or the data transfer requirements. So it's a lot of things that we believe that actually China doesn't have to do, but they should stay a global player and not sort of turn inward.
That brings up the longer-term goal here of things like carbon neutrality, for example, is one. The other separate one is this upgrade in manufacturing technology and capacity, two areas I would imagine European companies have a lot of opportunity to do business with China. Is that previous point you just made on turning inward, does that take away from the opportunities of those two longer-term objectives?
Well, according to our assessment, China stands for 20 to 30% of global growth over the next 10 years, as much as all the OECD countries put together. So there's no doubt that there's a very strong base growth within China. But again, they have choice. They can choose in order to be muddling through as they did now. China now is at $16,800 per capita. They could reach in 2050 around about $46,000 US dollars. And if they open up, if they globalize, it's going to be $55,000 per capita in 2050. And again, if they turn inward, decoupling, decentralizing, and stuff like this, self-reliance, they end up at 34,000. So China is going to double over the next 30 years at worst case, but at the same time, they lose out on 22,000 US dollars per capita if they go down this path. And of course, 22,000 times 1.4 billion means a lot of business opportunities lost in China, but also globally. So we really urge the Chinese government to stay open up even further.
And this is coming at a time when EU and China relations are looking a bit more fraught. Europe has taken more of a confrontational stance, Joerg. Where do you see relations heading? And do you think Europe can go at it alone with China, or should they actually align with the likes of the US?
Well, Europe is extremely important for China. They are selling twice as much to Europe than we are selling into China. At the same time, 40% of technologies comes out of Europe into China. So China has a vested interest in order to remain on friendly terms with Europe. But the public opinion in Europe is really turning against China for many reasons, Taiwan, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and so forth. And that actually gives our political decision makers less space in order to engage with China, which is very unfortunate. And now with the German elections coming up on Sunday, we might have a government that actually is far less positive on China. And that has an impact on our stakeholders and on the whole relationship. So to me, the status quo where we are today with a very tense relationship would actually be best case. I'm really worried about the long-term development. And yes, of course, we have an ally in the United States. We have common issues with the American companies, but Europe, I think, overall has to find its own stance.